Welcome to my channel where we question everything. My name is Dennis Vromatsky and today's topic is bits and pieces, and we're going to talk about recent oil cuts that OPEC Plus has introduced and which I tried to implement in November. Now, I just would like to give you some, well, you've all probably heard about it and read something about it, but what I would like to discuss is more the political implications as well as, well, some form of economic impact that will have on the world. Now, the original OPEC cartel in 1960, and it originally consisted out of Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Iran, Kuwait, and Iraq. But it had currently expanded to about 15 members, where there are two countries that are in South America, and then later on Russia is the plus sign. So, since Russia is the second largest producers of oil. And these guys come each year or every couple of months, they reevaluate the oil prices, and then they try to stabilize the industry and stabilize prices. And therefore, they do it usually by either increasing production volumes or decreasing it. But just to put it into perspective, OPEC has decided to cut 2 million barrels per day, but the total world consumption is about 100 million barrels a day. So what it means effectively is that about 2% of the oil production is going to be cut. Now, the oil price has risen since February up to a maximum, and it has slowly started to decrease due to the sanctions that America and Europe are actually trying to implement onto Russia. And well, with financial manipulation, because the dollar is the strongest and the financial system in the West is quite powerful, they have driven the price of oil down. But just as a reminder, Saudi Arabia is the largest producer of oil, and naturally that gives them the most say in the OPEC decisions. And their budget is dependent on the oil price. That means effectively the government's budget, we're not talking about the profits and so on of oil companies, we're talking about the income to the state of Saudi Arabia, and its expenditure, that budget is dependent on an oil price of $80 per barrel. Although Saudi Arabia is one of the cheapest producers in terms of cost-wise in the world, it takes the profit that it makes between the selling price and the production price and use that to finance the state expenditure. And for that, they require $80 per barrel. Now, last year it was a little bit lower, but about a year or two ago, they ran into problems. The oil price was too low and they couldn't reach their budget, and then they had to lend money on the open market. So there's an economic reason why they are doing it. And then there's another reason why it's important. Well, there are several reasons. And it's now the end of summer, which is usually the highest consumption of oil, and we're getting now into the winter. So it's just natural from statistics that the amount of oil being used in the winter season is lower than in the summer season. So demand just on that basis will be lower. Then with all the shenanigans and sanctions that the Americans and Europeans are doing on Russia, they are starting to think, but there's going to be a slowdown in the world economy, which is also being predicted by Bloomberg and World Bank and so forth. They're all revising their growth downwards significantly. And then you had all the lockdowns in China, which also inhibited their oil usage. So there's a general consensus that the oil consumption in the world will drop. And then we have Russia, who's currently being sanctioned by America and Europe. They haven't done it yet on all the oil, but they have put sanctions on the ships, so oil is difficult to transport via ships. And naturally, that has an influence on the sale or the transport of ship. How much, I'm not totally sure, because I can't find any figures anywhere. And the problem with sanctions is that, you know, there is not only one person in the market that supplies a service. There is always competition. So if the one guy says, like the insurance companies in Britain say, no, we're not going to insure your ships, your oil tankers, then I believe there's somebody else in the world, like in China, that will grab that opportunity and take it with a smile, that business. And in the same, we have the shipping industry. The Malta and Cyprus and Greece have huge fleets of ships. And if they can't transport Russian oil, then they're going to suffer. But it doesn't look to me like the European or Brussels actually caring much about that. But whatever, there's always another ship that will come in and take that load. There will be Chinese ships, there will be Indian ships, there will be whoever has some tankers. So I don't understand why they are actually doing it. They are shooting themselves in the foot. But this effect of the sanction has disturbed the oil market, which was a finely tuned, balanced industry. And now with Russia being sanctioned, then Russia has to look for other customers. And they are doing it, but you see, oil is a circular industry. If I am refusing to buy from supplier A, then somebody else will buy it from supplier A, and the one that buys from supplier A won't buy from supplier B, but I will again buy from supplier B. Because there's only a limited amount of oil production in the world. There is so much oil that can be produced. And according to the report that I read, is that, well, I think it's Euronews, even stated that the impact of these 2 million cuts of barrels of per day cut is not going to have such a huge influence, because OPEC already battled to provide the quotas that they were allocated. And the reason why is that because some of Russia's oil was cut, and therefore the other guys had high demands, and they couldn't cut it. Well, they tried everything, and they couldn't meet the targets, so they produced less oil than they were actually doing. So it was a natural process that they already cut. So in effect, this 2 million won't be 2 million, it will probably be either 1 million or less, effectively. Now, OPEC has stated that they have decreased the oil production based on what I've said, and in order to stabilize the oil market, which is being currently disrupted by the Americans, due sanctions and financial manipulations. Now that is serious implications. And then, like we always have, the Americans started to become angry about the Saudi Arabia, and they said there will be consequences for that, and that the whole cutting of the oil production is counterproductive and doesn't help them, and actually helps Russia. And no, it's that they went on this trail of madness, tried to sanction Russian oil, and they cut off their nose to spite their face. And now they're demanding everybody else to help them to put that nose back onto their face. And initially, and yes, there are some comments that this whole oil cut is like a snap in the face of America. You could see it like that. I don't see it much like that. It was more an economic decision. But the snub came actually in February and March, when Biden tried to phone Mohammed bin Salman, we call him MBS, and MBS refused to take his call. Now that was a snub in Biden's and America's face. And right after that, MBS phoned Putin and talked to him. Now, why is this currently happening? And well, what are the Americans offering Saudi Arabia? In the beginning, there was an agreement between sell the oil for dollars only, and we will give you protection. But what have the Americans done in the last 20 years? They only created turmoil and chaos in the Middle East. And why? There's no more security for Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia actually tried to step up and do it himself. Now, we see a huge change in the Middle Eastern policies. Saudi Arabia is talking to Iran. Saudi Arabia wants to join the BRIC grouping. Iran has already applied for the group, for BRICS membership. And so they will become part of the, not the SCO, but the Asian and the other organizations as well, which are creating the alternative economic bloc. And here America comes with threats instead of the carrot. They're providing nothing. They are threatening to remove the military base in the Middle East. I'm not sure if it's Qatar. Yeah, I think it's Qatar. And now, Saudi Arabia is going to be exposed. But they approved also a weapon sale to Saudi Arabia of the, what they call it. Sorry, I just want to get the name right. The US State Department approved the potential sale of terminal high altitude area defense, the THAAD, ballistic missile interceptors to the UAE, and the MMR Patriot's air defense missile system to Saudi Arabia in August. Now, why does the UAE need THAAD? And the Patriot system has already been proven to be inefficient against the Houthis' attacks on the Saudi Arabian oil refineries. So I'm not sure why they even want to buy it. And, you know, just for instance, there's another supplier at this stage on the market, that's the Russians. And if you look back at when Donald Trump went to Saudi Arabia and apparently clinched this huge 500 billion, I don't know how big this huge contract is going to get from Saudi Arabia, that one has never realized. It was only promises and air being spewed. And then you look at MBS. The MBS is 37 years old. And he's a crown prince and the prime minister of Saudi Arabia. He also serves as the chairman of the Council of Economic and Development Affairs and the chairman of the Council of Political and Security Affairs. And he was he was considered as a de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia, and he served as the Minister of Defense. Now this guy is 37 years old, which means he's a new generation. He's not bound by all these other traditional agreements that Saudi Arabia had with America. He's the new generations, which means he will probably try to change Saudi Arabia and make them, and he has options now. He has now the East to go to. He's not dependent on the Americans anymore. And you can see from his whole attitude that he's not going to be a puppet of America. So the Americans have a fairly large problem. And then, you know, they always blame Putin for the high pricing and so on. Even in this article of Euronews, well, in any case, the Americans and typical Europeans are stating that the high price of oil and so on is all to be blamed on Putin and his invasion of Ukraine. Again, shifting the blame away from them, which is ridiculous. Well, we all know it's ridiculous, but somehow the narrative is being repeated, and as I say, the more you repeat it, the more people will believe it. But we all by now should know that inflation is the biggest problem, and that has started last year. And that was due to all the money printing that was done during the 2 years of COVID. And now, kicking the can down the road has reached its end. And inflation has already started at the beginning of the year before the invasion. And then we had the energy crisis, which is a manipulated affair. And then we have all the higher oil prices and the sanctions. And then the rest of the OPEC didn't want to didn't want to join it. And now the Americans and the Europeans are sitting with a huge problem. But who do they blame? They blame Putin, and they blame now the OPEC countries. So on. And I just want to read you how they stated. The White House said in a statement that the president is disappointed by the short-sighted decision by OPEC Plus to cut production quotas while the global economy is dealing with the continued negative impact of Putin's invasion of Ukraine. You know? And then quote, at a time when maintaining a global supply of energy is of paramount importance, this decision will have the most negative impact on lower and middle income countries that are already reeling from elevated energy prices. See how they try to voice it in a type of, oh, the poor guys. Not us, no, the poor people. Now you got to lower the price in order to help the poor people. Just like, yes, we got to release all the grain in the Ukrainian port in order to export it to the poor countries who are now dying from hunger, and they use the humanitarian issue. And when they left the harbor of Odessa, then they all went to European states. And out of, I think, 80 ships, only 3 went to Africa. So how long are you people going to be fooled by all this nice talk? That's why I said in many of my previous videos, you got to read and identify what is propaganda and what is not. In any case, I'm glad to see that Saudi Arabia is not, or is now acting on its own and for its own interests, not a puppet that much anymore for the Americans. I would actually be, if I was Saudi Arabia, I would actually be glad if the American military left Iraq and, come on, where did I just say now? Qatar. That would be good for them. Then at least they can have their own foreign policy, talk to their enemies, whoever they think they are enemies, and get peace in the region. Because what the Americans have, they have just brought war, violence, and death. In any case, that's my story for today. If you like what you heard, press the like button, subscribe to the channel, and spread the word. Let's get some more awareness, thinking, and questioning out there. Until next time, cheers.